Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mr. Amir's Communication Arts class. This is a quick lesson on pronoun antecedent agreement. Now, first of all, you're probably thinking, well, I kind of have to know what a pronoun and an antecedent are in order to be able to answer some of these questions. So, a pronoun is a word that stands for or replaces a noun or another pronoun. So, an example, Mike appeared very sus while he was playing Among Us. Well, he is replacing the word Mike, so therefore it is a pronoun. Now, an antecedent is the word that a pronoun refers back to. So again, looking at that example, Mike appeared very sus while he was playing Among Us. Now, he, we said, was the pronoun. In this case, Mike is the antecedent because that is who the pronoun is referring back to. So now that we've got that under control, let's take a look at the 9 rules regarding pronoun and antecedent agreement. Rule number 1, a phrase or clause between the subject and verb does not change the number of the antecedent. So that might sound a little confusing, so let's take a look at an example and it might clear things up. The jar of marbles sits on its shelf. Now the jar is singular, and like we said, the phrase of marbles should not change the fact that the jar is singular. Therefore, our pronoun must also be singular, so that way they agree in number. So the jar sits on its shelf would make sense. Just by throwing of marbles in there should not change the fact that the jar is singular. Rule number 2, singular indefinite pronoun antecedents take singular pronoun reference. And again, might sound like a foreign language, so we'll take a look and I'll explain a little deeper here. So first of all, singular indefinite pronouns. We're like, what are those? Well, here are some examples. Each, either, neither, none, no one, nobody, nothing, anyone, anybody, anything, someone, somebody, something, everyone, everybody, everything. Whew. Okay, so now let's take a look at those examples. Each of the judges rules his or her court. So each, like we said, is a singular indefinite pronoun, so each is singular. Therefore, you need to use his or her as the singular court. So I do want to point out, if you know that both judges are men or that both judges are women, then you could just say each of the judges rules his court or each of the judges rules her court. But if you don't know if it's a man or a woman, or if one is a man and one is a woman, you would say his or her. Okay, another part of Rule 2 is the plural indefinite pronoun antecedents take plural pronoun reference. So it's basically the same thing, but instead of each and everyone and things like that, now we're talking about plural indefinite pronouns. What are some examples? Several, few, both, many. Those are your plural indefinite pronouns. Therefore, let's take a look at them in a sentence and show how you would use a plural pronoun. Both of the judges rule their courts. So here we use both, which is a plural form. Then we have to use the plural pronoun to agree with that. So it would be their courts. Another part of rule number 2 is when the indefinite pronoun is uncountable, you use a singular referent. Now, in a definite pronoun, there are countable and uncountable, which are the same. So we'll take a look at those. So countable and uncountable indefinite pronouns, some, all, any, none, most. So some of the sugar spilled out of its bag. Well, in this case, some would be an uncountable situation because you can't count the sugar. You're not going to be able to pick up each little grain and count it. So you would use it as singular because it's uncountable. So when it's uncountable, you use the singular version, which would be its bag. All of the jewelry lost its sparkle. You're not counting all the jewelry. It's uncountable, so it lost its sparkle. Another part of rule number 2, when the indefinite pronoun is countable, you use the plural referent pronoun. So again, some, all, any, none, and most. Those are the exact same ones that we just went over. Some of the marbles spilled out of their jar. And you're like, wait a minute, we just did some last time and you said it was singular. Well, that's because you couldn't count the sugar. Here, you can count the marbles after they spill out of the jar. Therefore, you use the plural, their jar. All of the diamonds lost their sparkle. But Mr. Addinger, you said all of the jewelry couldn't be counted. Well, now we're counting diamonds. So those are countable. and therefore we need their sparkle. All right, rule number 3, compound subjects joined by and always take a plural referent. So Marcus and Tyrell, right? There's a compound subject. We combined those two with and, therefore we need the plural. So Marcus and Tyrell pitched their idea to the group. So there, we're referring back to Marcus and Tyrell because it's plural. We're using the plural pronoun. Rule number 4, with compound subject joins by or nor, the referent pronoun agrees with the antecedent closer to the pronoun. So and was an easy one because it's always going to be plural. When you have or nor, it could be plural or singular. It depends on which antecedent is closer to the pronoun. Neither the coach nor the athlete skip their stretches. So here, athletes is the closest antecedent, and it is plural. Therefore, they didn't skip their stretches. Same situation, different antecedent that's closer now. Neither the athletes nor the coach skipped his or her stretches. So maybe the coach is male, but the athletes are male and female. Or maybe the athletes are female and the coach is male, or the athletes are male and the coach is female. So here we either don't know the situation or we know the situation and it's a split. That's why we're saying his or her. Rule number 5, collective nouns, a group, jury, crowd, team, and so on. They may be singular or plural depending on the meaning. So let's take a look. The team won its game in overtime last night. So the team is a collective noun. And in this situation, it's going to be singular because they won as a unit. So when you look at the win in their record column, it doesn't give a win to each individual player. It gives a win to the team. So therefore, it would be singular. The team ate their dinner before getting on the bus. Here again, it's the same collective noun, but in this situation, they're not eating one piece of pizza for one stomach. Here, they're eating for many stomachs as individuals, and you have more than one player, so it's plural. So the team ate their dinner before getting on the bus. There is plural because it's done as individuals. All right, titles of single entities, whether it's books, organizations, countries, and so on, take a singular referent. So if it's a single entity, Number the Stars makes its readers hang on to every word. So Number the Stars is the name of a book, which would be a single entity. So therefore, it makes its readers. The United States cherishes its Olympic athletes. The United States is a nation, therefore it's a single entity, and it cherishes its Olympic athletes, which is singular. Okay, plural form subjects with a singular meaning take a singular reference. So such as news, measles, mumps, that's a plural form, but it's a singular referent that we're going to be adding with that. The news lost its grip on the town after a few days. So it's a plural subject with a singular meaning. Therefore, it needs to be a singular pronoun. Its. And rule number 8, every before a noun or a series of noun requires a singular referent. So when you say every, it's always going to be singular. Every cow, pig, and horse lost its life in the barn fire. So every, we said, requires a single referent. Therefore, you need its as your singular pronoun. Every boy on the team dreams he could play in the NBA. Every requires a single referent. Therefore, the singular pronoun of he is the correct pronoun. All right, now this says rule number 8, but it should be rule number 9. The number of before a subject requires a single referent, while a number of before a subject requires a plural referent. So let's take a look at an example. The number of volunteers increased its rank daily. So the number of requires singular, so that's why we said it increased its rank daily. A number of volunteers had to leave their post early. So a number of requires a plural referent, so we're using the plural pronoun of their. Now that's all for today. Go ahead and start practicing those, and hopefully you're going to start getting the hang of this.